this might get out of control. He's worried that the children might get hurt. He does perceive what's coming. Atticus doesn't really believe that Bob would go that far as to attack his own children. He has more faith in humanity, but the sheriff is perhaps wiser in that respect. He has more experience of the people in society who don't have strong values and who will sink so low as to attack children. At the end, he makes the decision not to expose Boo to the attention, even be it gratitude for saving the children. In his view, the dead, i.e. Tom Robinson, shouldn't have died. So let the dead bury the dead. Let Bob Yule's death be amends for Tom Robinson's death, which shouldn't have happened. So, in his opinion, covering that up is the best option, just to say that Bob Yule fell on his knife and to save Boo. Dolphus Raymond, a minor character, but he's an interesting one. He's got mixed-race children, and he defends that. He uses this idea of being an alcoholic to cover up, because he knows that people won't be able to understand that it's a choice that he makes, a conscious lifestyle choice to mix with the black community, and the cover-up really is just his alcoholism. Now the local ladies, Mrs. Merriweather in the Missionary Society, this is after the trial, so obviously there's a great deal of disquiet in the black community, extremely dissatisfied with the outcome, and obviously still grieving for Tom, who died trying to escape. And she's so insensitive as to say that there's nothing more distracting than a sulky darky. So she feels that, obviously that's a racial slur, darky, for a black person. She grossly insensitive here to say that really they should just move on, that they're an inconvenience to her now. As her servants, they should behave with good etiquette at all times, no matter how emotionally fraught the situation might be for the whole black community. Miss Gates, Scout's school teacher after Miss Caroline that we hear about. Over here we don't believe in persecuting anybody. This is after they've learned about fascism and the Nazis. Of course this is absolutely hypocritical, because she actually says after the trial that she believes that Tom got what was coming to him, got what he deserved, and she is actually part of the persecution of the black community. It is entrenched, it is pervasive in Maycomb, these racist attitudes, and Miss Gates is, like many of the women, others in the Missionary Society as well, a hypocrite and a snob. Reverend Sykes, the black clergyman who takes Scout up into the balcony to watch the trial. This is at the church when the children visit in chapter 12. Quite forcefully, he does ask for an appeal to support Helen, and Scout isn't quite used to that heavy-handed approach in the church, trying to collect as much money as possible to support the family. It does also reflect here on Tom Robinson, been to the First Purchase since he was a boy, so he's a good, faithful, devout believer, which obviously is more character evidence that he wouldn't do anything like this, that he could not possibly be guilty of rape. This is to show respect for Atticus after the court case. So even though there was a guilty verdict delivered, they want to say thank you and show respect. And Reverend Sykes leads the black community in standing up to acknowledge Atticus and say thank you for him standing up for them. Now Mayella, in some ways a victim, but more so a villain as the trial goes on. Scout does perceive that she is sad, that she appears miserable, as miserable as what Jem called a mixed child, because they're caught between the two communities. The mixed children are rejected, supposedly by both black and white, so it's a very isolating experience. And in a similar way, Scout perceives here that Mayella is alienated and isolated from the rest of the community. She stays on the Yule lot, which is a real mess, with the other children on her own. So it's no wonder that she was attracted to Tom just for the sake of interaction, if nothing else. She says that she's never kissed a man, so it may as well be a black man. So we do feel a lot of pity for her at this stage. And of course, in Tom's testimony, he indicates here that Bobule abuses Mayella. So again, another case for her being a victim. Atticus even acknowledges that here she's a victim of poverty and ignorance, really social disadvantage, poor education, and poor parenting. Illustrates the importance of parenting, of course, but Atticus can't pity her because she has the advantage of being white, which in that community is the trump card. It gets her out of everything. Again here, the whole Yule family referred to. They're given money by the Macon community, but not respect. They're shown the back of its hand, so treated with disdain, shoved to one side, moved to the margins of the community, literally living out away from the main town, and largely ignored. But of course, we lose sympathy for Mayella as she condemns Tom. She could tell the truth, but she would be admitting the huge stigma of having tried to tempt to kiss a black man, and she would be disgraced by that, and she's not prepared to risk that. She would rather risk a man's life, and of course we can't forgive her for that, that she stands by her false accusation that Tom raped her. Now Tom himself. Now Scout recognises, regardless of colour, that Tom is a respectable, gentlemanly man, much like Atticus, good manners. He speaks very well at the trial, and he gives a very good account of himself and a very good impression to the reader. So again, more evidence that he's not guilty. Tom realises this statement is a mistake, but does show some compassion. For the jury and for the white community, this would be a huge shock, a huge taboo. How could a black man, who is supposedly bottom of the social hierarchy, feel sorry for a white woman? That would be unheard of. So really there is a gasp, and Mr. Gilman, the prosecuting lawyer, jumps on this because really that gives the impression that Tom has got ideas above his station, that he doesn't know his place. And in the white community that would not be acceptable. They would be quite keen to put him back in his place. Because of course of all these racial tensions, they want to preserve the white rights and the white privileges and keep the black community down beneath them in a submissive role. And there's a real kind of paranoia that the black community will regain its foothold and fight for more rights. Of course, after the novel was written, the beginning of the 60s, the novel of course set in the 30s, in the 60s that's when the real black civil rights movement got moving, and they did win their rights back. So of course it did happen eventually. Now the first reference here, it is referred to earlier, but after the trial, explicitly comparing Tom's death to the senseless slaughter of songbirds, to the murder of mockingbirds. And of course, as this next one shows, Miss Maudie and Atticus talk about the mockingbird as something peaceful, something that shouldn't be shot at, something that should be enjoyed because of its innocence, rather than slaughtered. So Mr. Underwood does see it as wrong that Tom died, that Tom was given a guilty verdict, and then took his own, was killed trying to escape. Okay, so there's a real sense of tragedy and injustice here, and Tom is one of those mockingbirds. Now the other mockingbird in the novel is Boo. He is innocent, he suffers unfairly. This is the very end when Scout says she actually doesn't realise that she's given a lot of hope to Boo. He did enjoy watching him out of his window, watching them playing, watching all the incidents in the novel play out. But she feels like she's given him nothing, and that disappoints her because he gave her her life. Boo saved her life. Okay, and he's been through a lot and suffered unfairly, and that's the link obviously with Tom. He seems very weak, he seems very fragile. Tremendous sympathy and pity for him here, just like we feel sympathy and pity for Tom. Now Atticus and his part in the trial. He says that he couldn't go to church and worship God. He couldn't tell Gem and Scout what to do if he didn't defend Tom Robinson. So he has to be consistent. He has to stand by what he says he believes in, and he believes in equality. This is his composure, this is the lynch mob. Very slowly, very deliberately, he doesn't panic, so he is that kind of mature, calm demeanour here. Now this is his consistency, as I mentioned. He's the same in the courthouse as he is in the public streets. Another famous quote about Atticus: he conducts himself equally fairly and with equal honesty, whether he's in the courthouse or whether he's at home. Okay, so he's fair with the children, he's fair and he's just, and he's open and he's transparent, just as he is in the courthouse, because, as he says himself, he doesn't believe that it's an ideal that all men are created equal. He believes that literally to be true. And here it is. This is written enshrined in the American Constitution, that all men are created equal. So we should dispel any preconceptions over colour or race, and treat people just on the evidence, because they are innocent until proven guilty, and they are equal in our eyes. Now, of course, in reality, at this time, the jury did not see Tom Robinson as equal. They did have preconceptions, and they did prejudge him because of the colour of his skin. But Atticus is trying to combat that view and just chipping away at it because it has been there for centuries. Now Scout, final character. She starts to perceive the social hierarchy that exists within Maycomb. Jem contends that there are 4 different types of people: the Robinsons, the black community, the Yules, the Cunninghams, and then the Finches. Now Scout would rather hang on to that ideal that Atticus would defend, that there's just one type of people, folks, and that people should look after each other and not judge each other. Jem is aware of these boundaries and divisions in the community. Scout, I think, perceives them as well, but she doesn't want them to be there. Okay, she would rather people treat each other equally because she can see the good in everyone. And she realises that obviously this is when the sheriff, Hecate, and Atticus agree not to expose Boo to the limelight for saving the children. It'd be like shooting a mockingbird. It would be hurting something that's innocent and beautiful and peaceful. And Scout can realise that. Finally here, the indication that Scout has really fully matured, certainly in terms of understanding other characters' perspectives, which is what the whole novel is about understanding other people's viewpoints and being acceptant and tolerant of them. One time Atticus said, "You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them." Just standing on the Radley porch was enough. So she gets a sense of what it was like being Boo, and ultimately that understanding of what it's like to be a mockingbird, to be someone who is persecuted, gives her a sense of the injustice, and ultimately through her delivers the message of the novel that things need to change, the attitudes in society need to change. Okay, so those are some key quotes that you can use in your essays. And just to recap what we've been through: how to plan, top tips for essay writing, some sample questions there for you to look at, and of course key quotes for you to use to base your analysis on. Hopefully that's helped.